So hello guys, hope you're all well and having a great week. So tonight, Middlesex University Product Design Engineering and Design Engineering, we're really excited to host our 18th talk in the annual guest lecture series. So these run weekly throughout the academic year. On Thursday evenings, they bring together a vibrant mix of speakers from across the full spectrum of design and engineering. So we have a mix of leading practitioners, opinion leaders, radical thinkers, and emerging talents to inspire and support professional development for both our students, staff, and guests as well. So tonight we're really excited to host Sam Gwilt. He was presently an industrial designer at the design consultancy Layer, and he's really popular for his content creation across Instagram and YouTube via the handle SamDoesDesign. And on this handle and on these accounts, he shares industry tips with the design community. Sam's work spans a range of industries from bespoke art installations with Paul Coxhead Studio to 3D printed table lights for gantry. And Sam's worked with global clients as well, like Braun and Nestle Skin Health. And he previously joined us in 2019 when things were slightly different and when we were able to meet in person on campus. And he was at Prowess Design at that time, now rebranded as Recipe Design. And he gave a fantastic talk called Rendering Realism Really Rapidly, a really well received workshop on using KeyShot for product rendering. And tonight, Sam's going to be running a portfolio masterclass, including a portfolio critique and a review section as well, and some Q&A at the end as well. So feel free throughout the talk to gather your thoughts, your questions, your sentiments, your comments in the chat section. And as usual, if you wanted to go live and interact with Sam at the end of the talk, type a live request in the chat as well. And without any further ado, Sam Gwilt with a talk titled Portfolio Prowess. And Sam, it's all yours.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that intro. And yeah, like you said, I was around in about 2019, but slightly different back then, but it is good to be back chatting with everyone. So this talk today is going to be all about portfolios. And I've just put this little disclaimer at the start because everybody has an opinion about a portfolio. And if I say something that maybe you don't agree with, then, feel free to do it your own way. I'm just one opinion, and maybe take things I say with a pinch of salt. However, I used to be the go-to person at Recipe Design. I would see all of the portfolios before sending them off, the selected ones to the head designer for selection. So I was kind of like the buffer, the filter. So I saw a lot of portfolios, and I started to see some similar mistakes that I try and help out with in this talk. So just a little quick bit about me. I graduated in 2017. I've worked in a few different companies by this point. Graphic designer at Pinewood Studios, where they film James Bond and Star Wars and stuff. A designer at Paul Coxhead Studio, which was more like bespoke lighting installations and gallery pieces. I've done a bit of freelance work. Precipice Design, rebranded as Recipe, but I haven't changed the name here. Sorry about that. And now I currently work at Layer Design. And also I do the internet stuff, SamDoesDesign, where I try and pass on the information that I'm learning as I'm learning it and trying to pass that on to everyone else as well. So the sort of stuff that I do online, a lot of visual stuff in my freelance work, such as KeyShot and product visualization. So this is just, I think, a screenshot of my Instagram page. And that brings me on to what is a CV and portfolio, because I feel like we have to understand what they are before we can design it. So I think it makes sense to go through some stuff. And if I, make this smaller down here. I don't know if you can see the Zoom chat there, but I'm just going to move it out of the way. So a CV is a business, it's a business card, essentially, long form A4 business card with your details on and a bit about what you do. It's kind of like a stats sheet, but we're going to get onto a stats sheet in a minute. A portfolio is a proof that you have the skills that you say you do on your CV. So you can list a whole bunch of skills on your CV, but if it doesn't get backed up by the portfolio, then none of it's really true. And they both act as a key to get you into a door. It's essentially opening up the doors. It's the first impression. It's the first hello. And then hopefully you get invited in for an interview after that. And then you can take it from there, essentially. So yeah, it's a first impression. You know, if I look at a portfolio from someone who's just cold emailed in, I don't know who you are, I don't know anything about you, I don't know what type of university you go to, I barely know about the differences in the UK universities, let alone international, you know, all the different institutes and their thought process and stuff. So it's an introduction, and you need to explain yourself to me without actually being in the room. It's going to showcase your best work and only your best work. It needs to wow me. And it is a product. You know, we are product designers, we are industrial designers and engineers, and it is something that needs to be thought of as a designed piece. It is a product that can be designed. So all the same questions still apply. Who is it for? How are they looking at it? Where are they using it? How long are they using it for? All of these questions need to be going through your mind. So a portfolio is an advertisement for your skills as a designer. And I like to reference magazines and articles and editorial articles in really nice glossy print magazines because they draw you in and they give you information in a really impactful way. So how do magazines capture attention? So number one, they tell stories first and foremost. It's a storytelling exercise. Your portfolio needs to tell the story of your journey as a designer through not only individual projects, but also your career so far as well. So you need to show the process within that. You can't just show, here's a final shiny image, or here's a rough sketch and that's the end of the project. You need to show the journey from start to finish, because that is really the bit that we will be judging on, is the process, the thoughts, the decision making. And if you can really show that, then that's really going to help as well. And number three, it needs to be nice to look at. It needs to be nice to use and really intuitive for me to be, you know, reading through it. And while I was looking at portfolios before sending them off to the creative director, I'd go through, you know, 20 or 30 portfolios in a session, you know, in half an hour or so, or even 15, 20 minutes. I have to get through so much, and I have to just skim through it. And I can usually tell which are the good portfolios based on how they look. You know, it's not just a nice thing to add at the end. It shows that you care, and it shows that you have the attention to detail that we'll be looking for. So if we're talking about a portfolio being a story, like a magazine, what is the formula for a story? What is the formula that you can repeat? So first off, I always recommend you open a project, you start a project with a really nice, high quality, contextual image that acts as the front cover of that project. So if you imagine looking through a magazine and you're going through and you get to the next article, sure, it's going to have some text, but usually it has a huge image, maybe full page image, that really just grabs your attention and says, you want to read the rest of this article, otherwise you are missing out. It brings you into that world, it aligns you with what to expect. So that's really important to have that front cover. The next part is the journey. And with the design journey, we know that the start, this is the design squiggle. I don't know how many people have come across this before, but with the design squiggle, we go from left to right and we say, okay, at the start of the project, nobody really knows what's going on. Everybody's trying everything out and we're exploring everything. And then as you move through the project, it starts to become clearer and clearer and more concise. And then finally, you have a nice progressive line to the end goal at the end. So that is the journey that we need to see. And then finally, you finish with a finale. You show contextual images that release the product out into the world and gives me a sense of what this might look like in the real world. Even if it's not actually made, I know that as students and as people at university, I know that these things aren't being mass produced at the end, but just to show a sense of what it might be in the world, whether that's through photographing a model or rendering out an in-context shot, that's really important. And then just rinse and repeat that process. It's as simple as that. Just use that same formula for every single project. If it's not chronological, and you just start with a rough sketch and you say, that's the project, there you go. It needs to be a really damn good sketch to be able to get the idea across. DCRAMs can do it fine. Us mere mortals might need to work a little bit harder with specifically that opening, the opening front cover, to really let me see what that project is about. It really needs to be so clear. So starting with a really rough sketch is maybe not the best place to start with in the portfolio, even though it's probably the place that you started with in the project itself. The order in which you reveal information is so important. It really is. When you're trying to communicate a really complex issue and you just dump everything on the page, and I don't know where to look as someone who's never thought about that issue before, and just everything is on the page all together, it really just, it puts me off. So you need to know which bit needs to be important, which bit needs to be said, and when. And this is one of my favorite quotes. Brevity is a courtesy to the reader. And another one of my favorite quotes underneath that is, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And what they both mean is, if you just put a brain, sneeze onto the screen, and you just put everything down, then I'm not going to read that. But if you can condense that, and if you can summarize it, and if you can tell me the key point, the single sentence that makes this page important, then I'm going to connect with that in a more impressive way, rather than needing to go through entire paragraphs and theses and all sorts of stuff in portfolios that I see. And a big part of this, if you're trying to if you're trying to communicate a story, is graphic design. And as designers and engineers that work on the physical side, and we are doing, designing for mass manufacture of physical products, I know that graphic design is not our strong point. I will hold my hand up and I will say, I'm not a great graphic designer because that's not my thing, but you really need to pay attention to these sorts of things. And to do that, I would recommend reading this book. If we were all in person now, I would fully expect everybody to grab their pens, and I would just hear everybody, scrambling for a sheet of paper to write this note down for this book title. It's called Know Your Onions, and it's all about graphic design and sort of the principles of hierarchy and fonts and grid and all the things like that, all the way through to print design and whether you need to use CMYK and RGB as well. Not only that, but it's a funny book. It's not a really dry, boring book. It's written in a funny way. So I really enjoyed reading that, and it allowed me to think more about graphic design and things like this, which I think drives the point home a little bit. First, you will read this. Second, you will read this. Then you'll read this next, and then finally, up in the top right corner, that's what you're going to read last. We know that we can fool humans' brains into looking at the exact piece of information that we want them to first. By using hierarchy, we can guide people through the document, through our portfolios, and make sure they're seeing information in the right order and in the right level of importance as well. So how to learn graphic design, you need to know that hierarchy is king. In Western countries, we read from top to bottom and left to right. So you need to bear that in mind, where the most important pieces of information are going to go in the top left-hand corner, and then everything else is just sort of going to follow it around. Cleanliness on the page. Don't overcrowd things. Don't add way too much information, because I'm not going to read it. And then terminology, like you can learn things like leading, tracking, orphans, those sorts of words. Someone who knows vague amounts of graphic design, if you know to look out for a widow or an orphan in a paragraph, which is a word on its own line, or starting a sentence where you shouldn't be, they really stick out to someone who knows a bit about graphic design. And you need to be on top of that, because adding in those little details, like making sure the sentences flow nicely, again, it just really shows that you've paid attention to the details. So some quick fire questions about portfolios, because these are the questions that I get a lot. And I'm here to answer them before people maybe have a chance to ask them. How many projects? 3 to 4 in-depth projects, no more. Necessary. You should be able to show all of your skills in those 3 to 4 projects. How many pages? As many as it takes. I always get asked that question. But look, bear in mind, I need to go through these portfolios and I need to flick through 30 or 40 portfolios at a time. If your portfolio is too long, I'm just going to give up and not get to the end. So you need to, it's always a balancing act. And don't forget, you can send in a shortened, condensed portfolio to the company. And then when you get offered an interview, then you take the majority of your work. And that is when you can have those discussions. But don't forget, a portfolio is just to get you in the door. What format should it be? Whatever is requested. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to knock the microphone. Look, if a company specifically asks for a PDF portfolio and you submit a website or a Behance page or a physical portfolio because you want to stand out and you want to send in a physical book because it's nice to hold. If they requested a PDF, there will be a reason for that. And it's probably because they want to archive it on their system. They want to be able to search terms on their system. They want to be able to, maybe you don't quite fit a project right now, but in a few weeks, months, and a project that's going to suit you comes up, they can go back and look at it. And sending in a physical portfolio to stand out doesn't necessarily mean a good thing. It's not necessarily a going above and beyond thing. Sometimes it just shows that you can't follow instructions. So if a company specifically asks for a certain type of portfolio, I would always recommend going with that. What resolution should it be? It should be widescreen, and then that's always a big question as well. You need to make sure you know the type of person looking at this. They're going to be looking at this on their phone. Are they going to be looking at this on their laptop? But I would usually recommend widescreen. How many megabytes? What file size? Always stay below 10 megabytes. I'd like to stay around 5 if you can. And do you need a website? Only after your PDF portfolio is done. Even in this day and age, in 2021, I wouldn't recommend building a website first. I would recommend getting the PDF in the bag. That's done. And then you have that content to then build your website if you have time after that. So, am I going fast enough or too slow? I think I'm getting to the end, but I'm just going to take a sip of water. There's a lot to get through. And I could talk about portfolios forever. I love talking about this. So shut me up in the chat if I'm rabbiting on too much. But what to include in your portfolio? This is always a big question. And you need to remember, you've got your projects that you have done. This is like your sphere, your world of projects. And then maybe the company that you want to apply for is slightly different, but there's some overlap, and you want to apply to this company, you should include the overlap section. You should include whatever's in the middle. If you start to include weird and wacky projects that don't necessarily relate to their business, that it's not going to be any help to them whatsoever. And I know that in an ideal world, someone can look at your skills and say, okay, it's not quite this exact product that we design, but there are parallels, and we can see they have skills and can pivot to do our thing. But if they have any other portfolio that shows them someone else can do the exact work that they need, then they're going to go with that person. You need to prove to a company that you're already doing the work that they need help with. Each portfolio needs to be tailored to the job you're applying for. So every single portfolio needs to include the projects that pinpoint that company and pinpoint the help that they need, which is a lot of work. If you apply, I've applied to so many companies that I've lost count, but you need to tailor it to each one. I know that's a lot of work, but nobody said applying for a job isn't hard work. And like I said just now, you need to show the employer you are already doing the work that they need help with. Otherwise, they'll just give the job to someone else who does show them. So how do I present my portfolio? This is a big question as well, because I know that sometimes it feels like going out into a big theater stage and being really nervous and really, a lot is riding on this when you do head into an interview. This is by this point. And I just want to point out that an interview is only ever people having a conversation. It's only ever two people sat in a room, maybe a group of people having a chat about design. And we all love chatting about design. So, I just want to say, like, the pressure's off in an interview. Don't put yourself under too much pressure. It's just people chatting. And nowadays, it's not even like going into a theater to present. It's more like this. There's nothing intimidating about this, surely. Needing to go on a Zoom call. Everybody's really awkward. Nobody knows how to share a screen. Nobody knows how to exit the interview. You all say bye, and then it's another 30 seconds of finding the exit button. My point is to say that everybody is human, and when you present your portfolio, don't sweat it. Like, just don't worry about it. So you do need to go through the document itself, but you need to know the order of the projects. You need to know your portfolio back to front and be able to flick between projects. Like, if at the end of you going through your portfolio, somebody, the person interviewing you might say, "Oh, can we go back to this project? I have a question." And if you start faffing around and not knowing where your project is, then it's just these little micro moments of confidence that you need. But like I said, practice makes perfect. I applied to so many jobs, sent out so many portfolios, and it just comes with practice. So we are getting to the end now. I think I'm running a little bit over, but that's all good. Top tips for a killer portfolio. Number 1, tell the story of the project. It needs to tell the story. Number 2, show off your skills naturally as the project calls for it. Show your decision making. Keep it clean. I'm not going to read any text. I'm just not going to. It needs to be visually stunning, a piece of design. Only show your best work. No page fillers whatsoever. And include your contact details. You'll be surprised at how many people just say, "Here's my portfolio," and then no way of being able to contact them afterwards. And decide how the reader will use it. That's really important. What not to do. Don't segregate your skills into pages. So what I mean by that is, don't say, "Here is my sketching page and a bunch of random sketches. Here is my rendering page and a bunch of random renderings." I see that a lot in portfolios, but like I said in the previous slide, you need to tell the story and narrate the skills and weave the skills into the project as you're telling that story to eventually get to the final contextual images at the end. I touched on this at the start a little bit. Do not use a rating system to measure your skills. That is a point blank. Do not do that. I can talk for hours about that as well. If you say I'm a 4 out of 5 at Photoshop and I'm a 5 out of 5 in Illustrator, the Adobe programs, on whose authority? What are you comparing yourself to? Are you a 5 out of, are you the master of Illustrator? Are you coding Illustrator yourself, and you are giving lectures on how to be the best at Illustrator? And I understand that what people are trying to say is, I'm most confident in Photoshop, I'm least confident in SolidWorks. I kind of get that, but as someone looking through your portfolio, I can tell which programs you are confident in. I can tell which programs you're not so confident in. So don't rate yourself in a CV. Don't have any typos. Don't change the type of the portfolio requested by the company. So don't forget, if it's a PDF they ask for, it's a PDF you should give. Don't have a PDF larger than 10 megabytes. And some useful links. Behance, Pinterest, the dots they tend to have a lot of graphic design and a lot of portfolio inspiration. Don't forget to look at magazines like Kinfolk, Hole and Corner, Wired, all of these really nicely laid out, meticulous documents, that are nice to look at. Know Your Onions, the book for graphic design. Go and pick that up. I really recommend that. And don't forget, I make portfolio videos on YouTube that you can check out as well. And just to drive that point home, yeah, check me out on YouTube. That is pretty much the whole document. I ran over a little bit by 6 minutes. So if there are any questions right now, if I can pop up in the chat, I'll stop sharing my screen for now. Oops, press the wrong button. Stop share. Before we move on to, I have some portfolios of people that people have submitted, so we can go through those. But if there are any questions, let me just check the chat. Oh, let me see. Oh yeah, sharing the Know Your Onions book. That's great. If there are no questions in terms of like burning questions to ask me right now, then that's great. We can do it all at the end. Let's do it at the end. I can see 1 or 2 questions, but let's move on so we know how long we have. What I'm going to do is share the screen again, and we will look at some people's portfolios. Okay. Whew. So first up, we have these brave souls. We have 5 portfolios to get through. I'm going to try and do all of these 5 in, let's say by 5:45, okay? And what I'm gonna do right now is show you how fast I will flick through a portfolio if I'm looking at this in the real world, if I was looking at through for a job, okay? To pass on to my creative director. So here we go. This is how fast. Right, yeah. Okay. Okay, there we go. That's how fast I would move through it. Now let's go back up to the top and to actually analyze it and see what I picked up on. So I do like to see a contents page. That's really helpful. A CV integrated into a portfolio is something that has really started since I left university. We never used to do this, but I'm seeing this more and more now, and it's great to keep everything together, in my opinion. I would say that it's also handy to send over a CV that without any pictures, just like the right-hand side of this page, just this bit, so that people can print it out, pass it around, you know. So if you just send that as a separate PDF as well, that would be really, really handy. These intro pages, yeah, they're interesting, they're nice. It's difficult to kind of read some of these. But I get what's going on. But what I would like to see is more of a contextual image to this, because if I look at this right now, and I'm not gonna, I've told you, I'm not gonna read any words. I kind of don't know if is this a bottle opener? Is this, you know, I kind of don't know what it is yet until I start to go through. I'm not reading any of this. I don't quite get what this is. I'm going to start looking for the first contextual images where I can see it in use, and that is the prototyping page here. Which, you know, it's always difficult to show prototyping images. I do wonder. There are 2 trains of thoughts on this where you can show it in use. Like, I know that design research a lot of the time is just rough and ready, and, you know, here it is, and I've just taken this picture on my phone. For a portfolio where it's going to be more like the idealized version of this, maybe it's good to stage a photo shoot of you using prototypes. But I do enjoy seeing this sort of thought process. But again, I've just picked up on this now. What was learned is in this tiny, tiny little font at the very end. And I'm not going to read that. You know, maybe that it needs to be a lot smaller and more streamlined. Done. That's the headline. You know, that, you know, trying to just really make things as concise as possible. So we have some more of these prototyping. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment on the projects themselves. I'm with no authority to comment on those. I'm only commenting on the layout of the portfolio itself. So with this, again, it's just kind of tricky. You know, when I was going so fast through the image, through the portfolio, seeing that this says Nest and not Neost, because the whole kind of looks like an O. I need to be able to see it like super quick as I flick through. Ideation, yeah. I mean, you're showing the process, but I wonder, like, why was it not these shapes? Why was it not this? Did you do research and birds didn't like to go in those ones? Are some more expensive to make than others? So I need to know, like, why did you choose the final design? Why was it this one? Was it easier to manufacture? Was it quicker to manufacture? Could you do it for cheaper? Because on some of it, like, I prefer the form of some of these designs. You know, I really quite like this 1 second from right here, and this third one here. I kind of like those. They're contemporary. And if your argument for choosing this design is just this was my favorite one, then there's no leg to stand on. There's no rationale for it. And then it's just your opinion against mine. But if you can say, here's the reason why, you know, the birds flocked to this one, and there was a queue around the block for the birds to get in, then, you know, then fair enough. Showing the rationale and showing that in a nice way. This is, you know, this is a contextual image, I would argue. In a studio setting, it's a contextual image, and I get it. I understand that before seeing anything else. So I think the pizza opening page is the most successful page there is, because you can kind of see how it works. You know, again, we're going back to a little bit more abstract with something like this, where it's not shown in use. And look, I understand showing things in use with a human hand, and, you know, when it hasn't necessarily been made. I know that's tricky, but that's the difference between showing off and just showing the work. So I'm just gonna, and then just one last thing about the skills page. You know, I don't need to see this because I've seen your CAD work throughout anyway. So just to throw these in at the end, you know, if you can integrate this into a project or turn it into a project itself, then I think that's going to work out a lot better than just saying, and here's my rendering stuff at the end. Like, you know. So yeah, overall, like, you know, it's a great start, and you know, just one or two little things to improve on. And what I would also say is, you want your first project in the portfolio to be mind-blowingly good. You want your final project in your portfolio to also finish on a really high note. And then that's not to say the projects in the middle are not good, but they are the least good, the least impressive, because you want to start on a high and also finish on a high as well. And just throwing in these you know, skills at the end is maybe just selling yourself short just a little bit. But overall, you know, thank you very much for sending your portfolio over. I really appreciate it, and there's some great work in there. Next, we've got Louis. So I'm just going to flick through again of like how fast I will look through. Okay. And you know what? I don't know how transparent everybody is with sharing their portfolios amongst you know, the class. When I was at university, we didn't really show each other our portfolios, not that I remember anyway. And I think just looking through these, you will start to see the issue that starts to crop up, which is everybody from your university will be applying to the same sort of jobs, and you all have the same projects. So it is really easy to compare you to other people, because, you know, oh, this is the Bird Box project, this is the Bird Box project, which one is better? So I would also recommend trying to throw in some personal projects as well. Just, you know, give it an extra element of like, but and this is me, you know, like really try and add in that extra element. And again, you know, the opening page, the opening contextual page. And I understand that contextual images are really difficult to do. So it's showing it in use, maybe in a studio setting. That is maybe the faster way to go. There are some issues with the render. I can see some jaggedy, you know, I can tell that's from the HDR, the lighting environment around, that's like not high resolution enough. So there are maybe some improvements that you can do there, but you know, that's the fun bit. That's the bit you can spend time on. And don't forget, even after you've submitted your work to the university to mark, you can go back and redo stuff and add to things and change things up as well. This is a nice sketching page with highlights of like, this is what I'm looking at. Here's a circle. This is what I'm looking at. I wonder if it could lead on to something more, like, and this also led on to, you know, at the bottom right of the page, this also led on to some model making and just sort of integrate it and show the story. Again, we're back into the student bedroom at 2 a.m. model making. Oh, I know it well, but that's the vibes that I'm getting from this. I wonder if you could hold get a nice clean, scoop, a photography scoop, and show it off in a nice minimal environment. That might be quite nice, and then show more contextual shots afterwards. And again, some studio context shots afterwards. This image I think is quite powerful because up until this point, while I was flicking through the first time, I didn't quite understand it goes on a backpack. Maybe I could have on this page. So maybe just highlight this more, work on that render a little bit, and just really, throw it in my face of and you can find images of people wearing a backpack and Photoshop it on to that person. So you can, you haven't got to render a whole city with someone riding a bike and you're all putting that into Keyshot or whatever. You can just find an image and Photoshop it on. That could help as well. Again, with the bird box, it'd be nice to see some decision making and why. I get, not every project has a why. Sometimes it's just because I liked it. But that would be something to set it apart. Let me see. Alessi, yeah, kind of, again, studio contextual. I just think that some of these pages could connect a little bit more because you have gone like, here's the sketching page, here's the rendering page. I wonder if you could overlap them, interchange them. Because like I said, with the design squiggle, design process is not linear. And I know for a fact that you were probably sketching after you've done rendering and gone back to sketching and then rendered again. So it's fine to do that sort of stuff. But with each step, it needs to get a little bit more high fidelity as it goes. Same sort of comments for this and the desk as well. Yeah, but I'm saying a lot of stuff like, oh, hold a photo shoot for your prototypes. And I know it's difficult in times like this. I know it is, but just putting in that extra half an hour, half a day to just get all the beautiful photography that you can just really elevates it up, I feel, into the next level. So yeah, again, thank you very much for sending that over. I'm gonna run out of time, so we're gonna go through pretty quick. Yeah. Okay, so contextual shot. Another, yeah, so these are contextual shots that show it in use a lot more. It's on a wrist, it's outside, could have picked a sunnier day. Really dismal gray day that you took that photo. Yeah, I think a project like this, but then then we're caught up again with like, and then there's some rendering stuff, just like one page rendering stuff, one page prototyping stuff. This is really nice. I like the lights on this, but again, it's clear that it's an iPhone or a phone photo. It's a bit wonky. You're looking at it in a weird sort of angle. Like, I think just the final finesse of just showing off these things to the best of their ability would really help. These graphic skills, they're nice. I just think it needs to be integrated. And what's the story behind the World Cup poster? What was the brief? What were the iterations? You can pad out a lot of these things. And again, because you've got some graphic stuff, you've got some model making stuff, you've got a whole bunch of lots of different things. I do wonder what type of company you would be applying for. Maybe a consultancy that does a little bit of product, a little bit of graphics. But then in that case, the graphics stuff can't just be a tag on at the end. You need to make you either need to really make a big point of stuff or don't include it at all, is my point of view. Let's see. As we go through. Okay, so this is an example, straight off the bat, this is an example where we haven't started with a hero image and we just go straight into nuts and bolts of this is, the theory and the process, which is okay. But, here we go. Yeah, having an image, a page like this to open let me know what the project is before I even look at the context, my first impression of this project is this, and I don't know what that is. So my first impression is what is this? I don't know. So you just need to add in, give yourself a page, give yourself an extra page to just say, boom, this is the project. Now we will continue into it. Don't limit yourself to just, get through the portfolio as fast as possible. But again, I think the thinking and the work is good. It's just the extra, and I'm just telling you, spend more time on the final images. And I know as a student, time is of the essence. But there's some good work, and you just need to be proud of it. Be proud of the work that you've done and show it in its best light, and give it some breathing space. Give it its own page, like that I've just highlighted there. That could be its own page, that could be its give it some space. And then finally, but again, whenever I'm going through and saying, just do more, I don't mean to just say do more. I really appreciate people sending these portfolios over. And I think there's some great work in here. I just want to help. I want to say what I'm looking out for. Contents page is good contextual image. Yeah, but then we fall into separating things out. Like, here is the product shot, here is the ideation, labeling stuff like that. When I know that's the product shot. I can see that it's the ideation by looking at it. It doesn't need to be segregated out. And particularly, the product shot could be its final on its own page. You don't need to condense it down so much. And again, finish on the nice images. I like the intro. It gets a little bit muddled and compact, and like I said, everything is on the page all together. I don't really quite know where to look. And then already we were onto the next page. It would have been really nice to maybe this page could be let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the bottom, 5 then here. As you get further to the end of the project, it starts to get more and more clear. 5, and then 6 is the hero shot with it in use. This one page could be 6 pages in the portfolio, and just really let it breathe. But apart from that, just give yourself the confidence to split it out and split the pages out. This is better. This is more along the lines of being able to break things out.
Okay.
Are we going to and then at the end, a final hero, which is, I think this project is your strongest for that. And it's a nice to show that you went through with it, and it wasn't just an idea, and it was a final thing that you made. I think is really nice. But just do that for the other projects as well. And I think you're onto a winner. So thank you, everyone, the 5 brave souls to send over the portfolios. Thank you very much. I hope that was useful, and I don't mean to be mean. I wanted to do that to help. I know that dragging some people to say those things is not always nice, but I hope it helped. We're all on the same team. We're all on the same side. We're all friends. So that's a piece of friendly advice. But some great work in all of those portfolios. And yeah, let's move on to a Q&A, I think.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks a lot, Sam, for the really informative and useful overview and session on portfolios. So the honest reviews and critiques were really appreciated as well. And thanks to all of the students who shared their folios for the session. I mean, as you said, Sam, they're not obviously critiques of the people themselves. It's obviously helping them move their work forward, and in light of their applications for placements and graduation and employment post-graduation as well. So definitely a massive thank you to yourself. And we've got lots of questions coming in. So guys, feel free to, if you want to ask a question, feel free to gather your thoughts, your comments in the chat. And if you wanted to go live and ask Sam something one-to-one as well, feel free to just put a request in the chat, and we can obviously facilitate that. There's a question coming in from Joseph Salem, so the same individual who you reviewed the final folio of. Mm-hmm. He's asking, should you have a physical folio? So are there times where it would be required to bring one in for an interview?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's always a nice thing to have. Look, I used to print physical portfolios, and I know they get expensive. They get really expensive, and it's not expected. Like if you turn up to an interview and you go, "Oh, I bought my iPad or I bought my laptop, and I've loaded up the PDF on here. We can flick through." Nobody's going to think, "Oh, they didn't even bring a physical portfolio. Like how stupid." Nobody's going to think that. It's a nice thing to have if you can do it. If there's time, you have to send off to the printers, you have to get it back or print it out on your own printer. If you have an A3 print, like, there's a lot of effort that goes into it, but it's not necessarily 100% a requirement. And look, don't forget, each portfolio needs to be tailored, like I said. And I probably sent out 50, 60 portfolios to get my first placement. And if I'm going to interviews, not at all of them, I only go to if I send out 60 and I get replies back from 3 or 4, it's still a lot of cost to be able to get individual portfolios made up. So yeah, definitely not a requirement. But if you really want to be passionate about it, then why not?
Amazing. And Navpreet's asking, she didn't get a chance to take some print screens of some of the slides, and is it possible to get access to the slides or the presentation afterwards?
Yeah, I can send over the PDF if you'd like to share that. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I'll circulate that as well.
Cool.
And then let's see. Scrolling through the chat. Demi Banjo is asking, what's your opinion on adding color to a portfolio, and how do you believe it's best done? In terms of the amount of color, perhaps?
I think color from the images themselves are great, but adding in, like if you're putting color into the template, like the graphic layout, I think you really need to know what you're doing from a graphic design standpoint. And if you do know that, that's great. But I think in this chat, we're generally going to be physical product designers and engineers, where graphic design is not our strong point. And if you just sort of wave an orange or a pink or a blue somewhere, it's gonna either look distracting or not as professional as a graphic designer might see it as. So you need to be really careful. I would recommend personally the most minimal, like zero layout that you can do, and just have the images in the project. If you want to see an example of that, I do, like on my YouTube channel, I posted, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, maybe last year, but I just posted my portfolio, my entire portfolio, my personal own, well, it was up to date at the time. It's probably about a year old now, but that's the one that got me jobs. And if you look at that, there's like as little graphic stuff as I could get away with in that. So feel free to check that out if you want as well.
Amazing. And Oral Marianne's asking, you said don't rate your work as such. So he's asking, if someone asks or requests or poses a question, how good are you at this? What's the best way to give an idea in the most simple and quickest way in terms of communicating how good they are at something?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that time you've added it into your question. What if someone asks me? And by that point, you're having a conversation, and you're in the room with them, and you can be open. You say, "Oh, I'm not so confident in this," or "I've only spent a few weeks learning this, or a few months learning this," and you can have a dialogue about that and be open about it. That's fine. But what I don't think should happen is before I've even met you, before I've even been in a room with you to go through your portfolio, don't list, "Oh, I'm only a 2 out of 10 at this program." Don't, by that point, you're just putting yourself down. And it's just not worth, like I said, I can tell already with the portfolio, I can tell with the work. So you don't need to, like, it's such a confidence thing where it's like, I know, because I used to do it. I did used to do it, but it's kind of like I'm saying, before you look at my work, just know that I know I'm not good at this program. And then, it's like a precursor, and you don't want that conversation at all with someone before showing your work. You should just say, "Here's the work. Like, I'm proud of it. There you go." Later on, of course, if it's raised in conversation, how confident do you feel? Because nobody's going to ask you, "How good are you at this?" They're going to say, "How confident do you feel in this?" And then you can just have a conversation, take it from there as a fluid thing instead of a one-sided thing like a CV is.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for that. And I guess the opposite to that, right, is listing that or stating that you're excellent or amazing at something, and then it doesn't quite align with your portfolio at the end as well. And then you're going through it and you're like, really? Like, where's the benchmark? How do you kind of provide that kind of grading system to yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
And Louis Giraud, the second portfolio that you reviewed, he said, "Hey, Sam, thanks for the feedback on this folio. Do you have any tips in terms of looking for placements?"
Look, it's hard right now. It's hard. A lot of the placements, I'm sure, are going to be remote. Just look at everywhere. Apply. Like, don't think that you need to apply to one place and then that's going to be it. You'll get the job. I applied to so many, either through jobs boards like Lemonouche has a jobs board, Yanko Design has a jobs board, my university had one. Just scroll through them and look through, see where's finding where's hiring an intern, and don't feel put down when you get either a rejection or get ignored. That's part of the process. It's not about you, it's about the company. Maybe your skill set didn't quite fit, but that's not to say your skills aren't good. Just carry on. Just do as many as you can. Scour as many jobs boards as you can and just keep at it.
Amazing. And now Brady Hanson, feel free to unmute yourself and go live if you want.
Cheers, Simon. Thanks. Thanks for the talk, Sam. Really appreciate it. Let me check my notes. I have a question. You said early on that the order in which you reveal information is a key skill to master. So my question for you is, how do you master it? How do you know when to reveal what?
Yeah, wow, I'm still figuring that out myself. I think it comes with practice, and don't be afraid to practice on your friends, practice on family members, walk them through the portfolio and just let them know, like, because what you want to do is show as little information as possible whilst getting the story across. In a portfolio, when you're in the interview, you can, talk about all of the details, but, write as little, if you write a whole paragraph, then try and get that same amount of information in half the sentences. Then try and get that same information again in half the sentences, and then put that in the portfolio. It's possible, which is why I enjoy the phrase, "If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter," because it takes time to condense stuff. But don't be afraid to practice on friends and just say, like, if something doesn't make sense to you, let me know, and try and do it that way. It's part of the reason why I started YouTube, because I wanted to master that myself. And it forced me, because YouTube's a mean place. And if I didn't explain things properly, or if I explained things too much, or if I didn't explain things enough, the internet lets me know. So it's kind of like, it just takes time and practice. But if you can do it with friends and family or other designers, maybe not, because they're already on the same sort of wavelengths of the projects. If you've done the same sort of tasks together. So try and find someone that doesn't necessarily know about your project and try and explain it to them.
Right. Cheers.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
And another question coming in from Oral Marianne as well is saying that what's your opinion in terms of longer portfolio versus shorter portfolio?
Yeah, I would say for as an initial introduction, a portfolio can be shorter for applying for a job. It's like just the essence of your work. It's just a taste of what you can do in the interview. And I've made this mistake before. I've got into the interview then with the exact same short portfolio, and I said, here we go, we can go through it. And I got to the end and they said, okay, where's everything else? I was like, this is it. So you can have a different version of your portfolio where it's like longer, more in detail, maybe more projects, and it's a different document. But you don't need to explain everything to the nth degree in that initial first thing.
Amazing. And Hugh Morgan's asking, how do you feel about the portfolio tropes that you see a lot on Behance and Issue and sites like this, where they have like stock sketch pads and iPads and dark backgrounds and things like this?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on at the moment, and I'm guilty of that as well. All of my Instagram from about 2016 until probably about a year ago was sketches that I've done, and then I took a picture of that and put it on the iPad. I sketched them all on the iPad anyway. So look, I'm guilty of that as well. I do think it adds some context. I do think it, if you show the sketch, but then zoom out and show the tools that you drew it with, as long as they are accurate, as long as it's not a digital sketch and then you Photoshop it with a pencil, then you Photoshop and you show it sketched digitally, I think it's fine. It's a bit of lighthearted. It adds a sense of this more lifestyle editorial. Like I said, with some of the other projects in the portfolio, just elevating what you've already done to be the next step. And if that means putting a border around that shows an iPad or a notebook with a pencil, that's such a quick thing to do, and it really gives life and humanity to the sketch. So I'm all for it. Don't rely on it. The sketch still has to be good in itself. You can't just show a really, a napkin fast sketch and then zoom out and make this big point of it. But use it sparingly, and I think it adds a lot.
Amazing. And Luigi Palumbo is asking that, like in the past, they've been given advice in terms of putting the entire project on a page that could be effective. And what's your opinion on that? And would you say it's better to let the project breathe on multiple pages?
Yeah, I'm definitely in team as many pages as it takes, because again, it's this order of information stuff. Whereas with some of the portfolios that I looked at just then, they've put everything on one page, which is, it might be nice to show like an overview, but I'm looking for things that I can employ you based on. And if it's just everything, I'm not really looking at anything. So I would prefer to just have, talk me through it like I'm 5 years old. Talk me through the project and just walk me through it so I understand it. It's the first time I'm ever learning about you. It's the first time I'm ever learning about your project. It's the first time I'm ever thinking about the problem you're trying to solve. And if I can be brought along with that story in a way that engages me, and I think, oh man, like the solution is really good because they've thought about everything step by step, I would think that is better than having everything on one page as a summary, even if that page is nicely laid out.
Amazing. And I think it links back to the thing about, storytelling and the narrative as well, in terms of unfolding and revealing the story and the process, rather than, like just providing all of the information and having that information overload.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see a lot, but you're not really seeing anything at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, just overwhelmed.
And then Ellen is asking a question. So I think you've touched on this slightly, but is it better to build a web portfolio, or should we stick to a PDF portfolio?
I mean, building a web portfolio is like, it's when you're already trying to learn how to do a portfolio, and then all of a sudden you add in a web element to it that needs to scale, it needs to work on Safari, it needs to work on Chrome, it needs to be on mobile, it needs to be, there's a whole extra thing. And when you're already on a learning curve of making a portfolio, and then you add in a website, it's a lot. So I would recommend doing the PDF first. We're more used to making presentations and documents like that. And then once that's done, then think about a website. There's all pros and cons, whether you should host your own website with something like Squarespace. That's expensive. Something like Behance is like, here's all my work, but all of your competitors are one click away, because Behance says, if you like this project, look at this one. And it's like, it's a completely different person. So your competitors are closer. There are pros and cons. So choose the one that's right for you, and make sure that PDF is nailed first.
Amazing. And Tom Millward, feel free to unmute yourself and go live.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for the talk. I was wondering, as a final year student who's currently doing his FMP but is not quite finished, how would you showcase that or hint at it in a portfolio if you're currently looking to be employed?
So you're finishing your final project, is that?
Yes, it's
okay.
In the current stages, but it's not quite finished, so it's not portfolio worthy yet.
I see. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess if you can have any, it is difficult, and I know, and I know it's difficult to show like final things, even when they are done in this day and age, because of like everything. If you can still show something that makes me understand it at a fundamental level, like if it's like you look at some Nendo design, Nendo stuff, and it's just a simple line sketch, and you just look at it and you go, oh yeah, this chair was inspired by shadows or whatever. Like you just get it 100%, and it's distilled into its most perfect, purest form, which takes a lot of time in itself. I know that. And you can explain, we're not expecting everyone to have, here's the mass-produced final thing, and I've sold 10 million units. We understand that students are going through the process and you haven't maybe quite finished it yet. But just try and find the essence of what it is and make sure that comes across. So again, I'm not just looking at a bunch of rough thumbnails and then a chart of an infographic and then some cardboard mock-ups. Like there could be something that, and maybe, maybe Leia does this a bit as well on Instagram. If you look at Leia Design, they have like watercolor sketches of the product. And look, the person doing these watercolor sketches is an absolute master, and I would never be able to do that. So being able to, but it's just showing the project without showing a photo of the thing, like if it's an illustration or whatever, maybe you can think of an easy way to show that.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Sam.
Cool. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Amazing. And the student whose portfolio you reviewed first, Harry Miller Adams, he asked a question with regards to an interview next week. So he says, "Hi Sam, thanks a lot for the portfolio feedback. He has an interview for an internship next week. So what's your best interview advice?"
Just have fun. You need to go in there with questions of your own. The way that I look at interviews is like, because I might get nervous if I didn't think this way, but I'm interviewing this company to decide if I want to work there. And that's such a bold thing to think, but just that mindset is so empowering and just takes away a lot of the pressure. Like they need to impress me so that I know that I want to work there. So go in with your own questions, some questions about what you might want to ask. what is the team structure like? What is a day-to-day? You know, what is the day? What's the schedule like of day-to-day? I mean, I don't know what type of company, or like, do you outsource your models, or do you have a model making facility? Do you how large are the teams that I'm working with? How long will I work on a project before I get moved to something else? Like, you really need to ask these questions, because they will ask you, oh, have you got any questions for us? And if you say, nope, that's a big red flag. So go in there intrigued and confident, and yeah, just you know, it's a chat about design. We all love design, and we all love chatting about it. So just have fun with it, and make sure you can ask those questions as well.
Amazing. And in terms of the design process, right, when you're prototyping and you're testing, you're validating, refining, optimizing, there's a lot of you know, exploration that goes. And in terms of the documentation of that, many students you know, record videos and capture, you know, parts of the process with videos and different kind of mediums. Adam Paintings asking a question along these lines. So if he produces video journals of the process, how can you ensure that potential employers view them alongside viewing the portfolio as well?
I don't think you can. That's the tricky part. I would always see these videos as like extra additional information. I would never rely on those videos to give something. So maybe you get some screenshots from those videos, and you put them in to the PDF, or, you know, into the portfolio as images. And you say, look, if you want to see the full process, you can go and check out the videos and have the link or whatever, and then leave it up to the person to decide. But you've already got the key information in the portfolio itself. Something that's going to help with that along the way is a more high resolution camera, because you can pull still images from it. Phones can do it these days. Phones can do it really well. But just make sure that whenever you film stuff, it's not 2 a.m. in your bedroom and you haven't done your laundry and there's, you know, a pile of laundry in the corner. I've been a student. I've been there. Try and like stage it, or not stage it, but try and make the things look as good as possible, so you can get an image from it, and that image looks good on its own. It doesn't need to be in motion to explain what it's doing. And I think it's a nice thing to have on top of that. But I don't think relying on that for a designer to sit through it and watch it would happen, because, you know, like I said, 30 or 40 portfolios I need to get through in a session, and I just won't have the time. But if you can get the core details in the portfolio, then we can chat about the videos and watch it in the interview afterwards. So that would be my advice for that.
Amazing. And I guess the final question from Lizzie Whittle, she's talking about sketching and drawing. So what's your opinion in terms of the digital versus you know, tangible paper sketching? So is there a preference for the portfolios?
I think the portfolio that's online on my YouTube channel, I think most of the sketches on there would have been digital, but more recently I've gone back to pen and paper for speed. It is just fast. No matter how much I was trying to kid myself before that, I'm just as fast at digital sketching as physical. You just get caught up in details. With digital, you get caught up in details. You get caught up, and you just start to undo things because you don't like them, and you lose a lot of work. I think you lose work because if you undo stuff and then sketch over it or whatever. So I think maybe I did myself a disservice by doing digital stuff. I would always think that a digital is more, you know, it's luxurious to be able to do it and get some nice images from it. But in my day-to-day, in my professional life now, it's mostly paper sketches. And I think if you can learn paper sketches, then you'll do great at digital sketches anyway. So I'd recommend trying to show that as much as possible as well. Maybe a mix, you know, like I said, maybe it's a progression. You start off with paper, you move to digital, so you get some card models coming in. It's a bit of mixed and everything, and then, you know, it's fluid anyway. So if you can show that, then that'd be pretty good as well.
Amazing. And I guess one final question has come through now by Luigi Palumbo. what softwares do you recommend on the iPad, and what software do you use to sketch on the iPad?
Yep. So the sketching app that I use is called Procreate. That is, I think it's like £9 on the App Store. And with apps on iPads, everyone's up in arms. Oh my God, I'm used to an app being 79p or whatever. But £9, it's such an amazingly powerful app for such a low, like it's on par with what Photoshop can do, I would argue. And it's £9 instead of like £1 billion a month for Adobe. And then so Procreate is the app that I use to sketch. Sketchbook Pro is actually free, and that's a great app as well. I just prefer Procreate personally, but Sketchbook Pro is great as well. And then for modeling, I use an app called Shaper 3D, and I can get some push-pull, really rudimentary models, but I can get that done on the iPad if I'm just thinking of stuff really quick instead of booting up the computer and doing it the slow way in SolidWorks or something like that. So yeah, Procreate, Sketchbook Pro, and Shaper 3D. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, guys. And just to conclude, details of the talk and Sam were sent to all of your emails ahead of the talk, including links to Sam's YouTube and Instagram as well, alongside Sam's website, SamDoesDesign as well. So definitely feel free to browse and connect. And to conclude, thank you, Sam, for taking out your time and joining us tonight. It was very informative, useful, and inspiring as always in terms of, and thanks for running this workshop and overview and portfolios. Really appreciated.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for having me. I had a great time, and I hope everyone found that really useful. Thanks again.
Amazing. And then thanks to all the participants and attendees, especially all of the guests, especially those from the Dyson School of Design Engineering and Imperial College London, and all of the alumni who've joined tonight as well. For all students, staff, alumni, and participants, we really look forward to seeing you guys next week. So keep an eye out on your emails for the details of the next speaker and the links to the next talk as well. And until next time, stay well, stay safe, and thank you, guys.
Thanks.